Hello everyone, in this video we're going to set up damage per limb with the shooter module for Game Creator. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. Now in order to start this process, I'm using Puppetmaster. There's similar types of assets you can use for this as well. There's a good reason why I'm using Puppetmaster. Basically, you need to create a collider system that matches the rig of the character. And I'm going to show you this straight away. So we have our character. Let's zoom in a bit. Turn this around for the lighting. Perfect. So next up, we're going to add the next step. Which is a ragdoll. And in case of Puppetmaster, it's called Biped Ragdoll Creator. And yeah, we can create the ragdoll. We have some optional bone settings. I am going to select a capsule collider for the torso because there's just simply less overlap. And yeah, I like box colliders for the feet. Cool. Now you can edit all of these, by the way, and I do want to highlight that, quite important. You can edit all of these colliders and you're done. Then next step is going to be to add Puppetmaster. And here it's asking for controller layers. Now this is quite important. So when you go to layer, you need to add a character and ragdoll. Now you can add this in whatever place you want. You just have to remember the number you're assigning to it. So I'm using 12 and 13. Keep that in mind, so add them wherever you want, but keep the numbers in mind. So here we're going back, going to select 12 and 13, and we're going to set up Puppetmaster. And that's the basics. Now one of the big things that has changed is the entire hierarchy of our character here. But as you can see, everything here is already assigned the layer ragdoll, and everything under it, the same thing pretty much. Then this is the actual root. So this is the skeleton. I do want to highlight that. It's quite important, as this is not the same as what we use with Puppetmaster, which basically is mirroring the entire rig, but done differently. So as you can see, these are all capsule colliders with rigid bodies with joints attached to each other. And this is kind of what is amazing for us, because we need to rely on this. So one of the big things, if you've ever tried to do something like this, you add a capsule collider to the head, you do a trigger, 100% damage, and then you shoot the body and he still takes 100 damage. And you're like, I only put that trigger here. And that's because the parent will basically, that parent collider will basically cause that to trigger. And that's the big issue. So what we need to do here, first off, let's make sure it's all working. So in Character Animator, we need to drag in the original robot again with the animator. So let's do that first. And then change this to character. Now make sure to do no, this object only. And the reason for that is it needs to be on the one with the character controller. Now when I'm going to hit play, he's going to stand there and it all works. If we want to try out Puppetmaster, he's collapsing, alive, and yeah, it's all working great. Now if you want, it's quite important as well, by the way, if you want the animations for all of this to work, I have a different video covering Puppetmaster in general, so definitely give that a look and see how to customize the other settings. It's not really what this video is about. We're going to use it a bit differently. So what we're going to do next, we're going to collapse the original with the rig, and we're just going to have a look at this. Now what we need to do here is we need to rearrange this entire setup a bit, because the problem would be that if we put a trigger for 100% damage on the head, which is a child of the chest, and then we do a trigger on the chest as well, you'd have the same damage on all of the limbs as on the head, for example, because, you know, it's the parent. So a really simple fix is just, you know, drag them out and, you know, it's no longer the parent. Now, I'm not going to put a trigger for hips, so I'm going to ignore the hips. That's my choice. But the reason I'm ignoring the hips is because these are kind of the groups I want. So I want this group, I want this group, this. And those are all the groups I want. So basically, you know, well, just like it explains. So I just want these to be the different body parts that we can apply damage to, which covers the entire body. There's a small gap here. You know, you can expand this capsule collider a bit if you want to, but yeah, I'm going to keep it as is. So yeah, that's kind of the trick. So what we need to do next, we can select them all just to add the trigger component. We can't multi-edit, but at least, you know, it saves us a bit of time here. And let's start off with receive shot. We're going to do an action for that. And I'm going to drag that action out of here. So I want that action to be here. And this is going to be action limbs attribute. And then, yeah, we still need to set that up. So let's add the stats component to our character here. So stats, he has the basic vitality of 100, so just the normal stats. Let's add character shooter as well, just to avoid any issues. There we go. So we go back to actions limb. We do game object, drag in the parent of the character, select health, subtract, and I'm just going to do 10. There we go. Now for all of the default limbs, so left upper leg, right upper leg, receive shot, I'm going to use the same actions. You know, I'm completely fine with that. They can all just, you know, receive the same amount of damage. For the arms as well, so receive shots, there we go. And yeah, they all have that same damage now. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and then here we're going to do action head. So headshot damage is just going to be 100. You know, I like that. You know, shoot the head. It's, you know, he's gone. That's it. The end. And then we're going to duplicate this one again, and this will be chest, and that will be 20 damage. You know, you do whatever you want with the numbers. Doesn't really matter. Actions chest, and there we go. So now we still need to add that trigger. So receive shot, chest, and receive shot head. There we go. Then we need to add another trigger on the parent here. There we go. Attribute change. Health. And let's add a condition. Conditions death. Attribute value invoker health less or equal to 0. And then, you know, he's just going to ragdoll. Now, maybe there's some custom actions I haven't actually checked for Puppetmaster, but we can also just do call method. Just drag in the Puppetmaster group, Puppetmaster, and kill, which basically is just going to do the same as when we select dead here. And yeah, that's it. Cool. Now we want to make sure this is actually visible as well, because we need to do our proper testing. So let's add a canvas here. UI canvas world space 0, 0, 0, 0.01, 0.01, and then 100 by 100, which basically creates this little square we have here. There we go. Then let's add an image. I need to make this 10 by 80. Attribute UI. Make sure to select the game object. Health. And then we need to drag in the values. So let's add another image. There we go. I'm just going to call this background. Then let's copy all of those components. And let's paste the values. There we go. And for this, we'll need a square image. There we go. It's in stats examples. And this needs to be filled and horizontal. And this type of, bit of dark red. Yeah, that's fine. Let's duplicate that. And then on the first one, we need to add attribute UI again. Same deal here. Drag in the value fill image. And then on this one, we need to do the same. Cool. Now, I would like to be able to see this as well. So I'm going to be adding some text here. Because, I actually want to see the damage we're outputting. Do you think that's, going to be a bit important here? So let's do this. And I'm only doing 0.1 here just to make it a bit sharper. Always helps. There we go, that's fine. Cool, so, as you can see, it's a bit sharper now. Let's make sure we're not causing any issues here. And then when it comes to the text, remove everything that's in it. Once we've previewed the size, and then we can drag that in here, and there we go. So now normally this should display the damage we're taking, so we're good there as well. And yeah, we have all of the basics set up here. Then our next step is going to be to add a player. There we go. Let's drag that player out a bit. Perfect. We need a camera motor. There we go. For the camera motor, I'm just going to be using my default setup. So that's 0.7, 1.5. It's kind of like the shooter view if you want. 2.5 here. Don't allow zoom. And yeah, that works. Then next up, let's add an empty. And we'll just add all of the basics here. So combat. And all of these basics will be so on start, draw weapon. I'm going to be using the default revolver because it really just doesn't matter. And then add some ammo, which is just the default bullets. I'm going to give them 100. Cool. Then we need another trigger, which is mouse down, left mouse. Another trigger, mouse down for the right mouse, because we need to zoom as well. and another trigger to aim, sorry. Mouse up, if we let go of the button, aiming stops. So let's start with shoot. There we go. Another one here, mouse down, which is basically just going to be aim. Going to use the default camera direction, which most shooters use. And I'm going to mess around with the field of view a bit as well. Default is 60, going to change it to 40, which basically is kind of like zooming in at the cost of, the width of your field of view, which, kind of makes sense. I'm going to duplicate that action, and I'm basically going to change that value back to 60 and stop aiming. Now, I'm going to change this to 0.1 on both to make that, snappy. It shouldn't be instant, but it should be really snappy. And yeah, we need to make sure we reference to those actions. Now, when it comes to the actual ammo setup, there's a couple of changes you will need to make. So first off, we're going to do raycast all instead of spherecast all, change 1. And then when it comes to layer mask, by default it will be everything. And you basically need to click on character because that's the layer we're going to ignore. And the reason for this is because the character has a collider as well, this parent basically, which is this big one, which needs to be entirely ignored. Like, we're not, it should be avoided. So the way to do that is basically by having the bullets just completely ignore that layer. So yeah, in a way, simple enough, which is obviously a good thing. When it comes to the spread, I'm just going to remove any spread. I just want to aim a bit precisely here so we can actually see what we're doing. Cool. So all of these basics should be working, so let's actually give this a try. And I forgot the most important thing yet again, and apologize for that. On the player, we actually do need the player shooter component. There we go. Cool, so now we're going to try if this actually works. So let's shoot the limb. And we have 90 damage. Going to shoot the torso. We have 20 damage, and we're going to shoot the head. And yeah, that's how it's supposed to work. Now, if you want to add, because one of the things that is important to note, we had a couple of things here. So basically, not characters. Sorry about that. When it comes to the robots, we basically did everything here. And as you might have noticed, we did upper arm, which doesn't include the lower arm, and it doesn't include the hand. So we could all drag those up unless you want exactly the same thing to happen. Now, if, for example, you want to add something like shooting the hand means that he's going to drop the weapon, that means that the trigger will actually need to do some other steps. So what you can basically do then is just, drag them up as well, and, just add those triggers again, and, that's it. So the same steps as we did before with the chest. Now, the reason why this will work just fine is because this is all set up with a joint system. So we, of course, they still need to be under the Puppetmaster, and I'm going to keep it under the root of the hips. But as you can see, it's still being referenced just the same, so it doesn't really matter where we put it. As long as they're still obviously part of the same group, don't go putting it outside of the parent entirely. And yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. And this is a functioning setup to make sure that you can actually apply damage localized. So different limb damage, different body damage, and different head damage, and especially head damage. That's one of the biggest things. You don't even see limbs most of the time, but the head, a headshot needs to be something. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. As you can see, it takes a tiny bit of setup, but Puppetmaster makes it a lot easier to do this. Now, if you go mess around a bit more, and I would advise, checking the Puppetmaster Discord, you can also make sure that once you actually shoot a limb, the arm pulls back, things like that. It's a bit more advanced and really Puppetmaster specific, but it's an absolutely amazing asset, and it's definitely worth looking into, adding those extra touches of realism. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.